What's going on, everyone, and welcome to this weather update. This is our first weather update since last Sunday, and today I'm coming to you because we do have an active situation that could be setting up as we head into later next week, which requires us to do multiple updates. Today will be the first one, and I'm sure we will have more on this as time goes on. Let's start off with the current weather first, though. Taking a look here, we do have this cold front across the east, then we have another system in the Atlantic. Both systems are trying to come together across New England, and because of that, there is the risk of some heavy rainfall. There could be amounts upwards of 2 to 4 inches from Connecticut on up into Maine. Connecticut, you're probably on the backside of this now. It'll taper off at some point tonight. Maine, this could linger into the first part of tomorrow, so it's something you want to be mindful of. Taking a look at radar, you can see the rainfall here. It is starting to clear the Philadelphia area. There is another line that is behind us. That's going to push through. It could give you a couple more showers. DC, you could see a few more showers as well. The rest of the country is not terribly active. We do have this system in Mexico, which down at the Texas-Mexico border is providing some heavier rainfall. And then we do have the risk of some severe weather up in the northwest today and down here in the Gulf Coast states, though it is a marginal risk. Taking a look at the National Hazards Map, not all that active, but something I must tell you about is this. See all these gray areas? Those are air quality alerts. There is wildfires that are ongoing up in Canada. With the winds coming out of the north, smoke from that is blowing southward. And you'll be able to smell that smoke at all levels of the atmosphere, even down at the surface. And even if you're high up in a mountain somewhere, you're going to smell the smoke. If you're an asthma sufferer, I'm an asthma sufferer, so something like this would bother me. You want to limit your time outside. You probably want to stay indoors. If you have an air purifier, make sure you're having it running at high blast on a day like today, where the smoke from the wildfires can be harmful to your lungs and trigger an asthma attack. Alright, moving on to the severe weather threats. As stated, there is marginal risk of severe weather in the Pacific Northwest today, Four Corners region, southern Texas, and parts of the Gulf Coast region. And the only place with a tornado threat today is at the Georgia-Alabama border. The rest is all wind and minor hail threat. There is also a slight risk of severe weather for tomorrow in the Pacific Northwest. Storm Prediction Center does not have any tornado probabilities as of yet. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be taking any storm serious, because as you know, any storm could contain a tornado. It happens at random sometimes. We have seen several less than 2% area days from the Storm Prediction Centers where a tornado does occur. Wind and hail are the bigger threats. 5% chance of wind, 15% chance of hail in this yellow area. Moving on to the excessive rainfall for today. As stated, there is the chance of excessive rainfall up in portions of the I-95 corridor from New York City on up through Boston, where heavy rainfall is occurring from the squeeze play of these two systems. As we go to the day 2 outlook, there's a couple marginal risk areas. One in the southeast, one from Texas on up into portions of Colorado. Don't ask me why this is a harp shape. That's what the Weather Prediction Center did. And also a marginal risk in the Pacific Northwest. Day 3 does have a marginal risk across portions of Florida and portions of Oklahoma and Texas. I'll explain about this Florida threat here momentarily. Let's move over to the models. First off, let's take a look at the NAM model, and you can see here's that heavy rainfall threat that does continue in through portions of New England. It finally does start to clear out tomorrow morning, and let's go over to accumulated precipitation amounts, and you'll see here with the accumulated amounts here, you can see where this purple is. That's 2 to 4 inches of rain isolated higher. Anywhere in this blue, in lighter shades of blue, that's upwards of 1 to 2 inches of rain. So this is some beneficial widespread rain. I know Maine, the rivers, streams, and lakes they're elevated right now, but places just to the west of there, you could use a drink of water in the ground, as for the last couple weeks it has been dry. Alrighty, let's go back to the surface reflection here, and you can see here as we head into tomorrow, here's the risk of severe storms in the northwest. Now watch what happens in the southeast. That front never fully clears. And you also had this tropical low, I guess you want to call it, that's ongoing here in the Atlantic. That's a feature we're going to have to watch as the week goes on. We're also going to have to watch this area of high pressure that sets up in the northeast. Because on the south side of this high, it's going to be a blocking high. Underneath it, you're going to have this energy and moisture that gets going over Florida, even Georgia. And there's some discrepancy with the models as to just what's going to happen with this. It could eventually get stuck in this area. And as we go to the other models, let's start off with the GFS first. You can see, watch what happens here as we go later into the week. It kind of gets trapped here, this energy. You have this blocking high to the north. You have quiet conditions across the rest of the country. Nothing too major. It's going to get rather warm in the plains. It's going to feel like summer. Temperatures are going to be in the 80s. And there may be some afternoon thunderstorms. But we really have to watch this Atlantic low and this energy, because the two of these systems may try to come together. And watch what the GFS does as we go to Wednesday. You can see convection really gets going over Florida. There's definitely a heavy rainfall threat for Florida midweek on. And watch what happens. It develops an area of low pressure. But look to the north of this. This high pressure that is ongoing gets stronger. And you can see we kind of have a squeeze play going on where there is a convergence zone, not only with the moisture, but with the wind. And the convergence zones of the two, the pressure gradient, that is going to create some windy conditions. And watch what happens. This low actually tries to get going over the Gulf Stream, where the warmest waters would be at this time of the year. And look at this. It does try to form some sort of an area of low pressure. The models have been struggling with this over the last few days. It's been changing from run to run. The GFS especially has been changing from run to run. But look what happens. Now we're coming into Memorial Day weekend. This is 12Z Sunday. And you can see this system. It does get rather, organized for a little bit while. Then it just gets all strung out. Let's switch over to the Canadian model. The Canadian model is a little bit more organized. Here's the one area of low pressure. Here's the other energy. Watch what happens. The one area of low pressure leaves. The other energy gets going as we head into next weekend. Here's your pressure gradient. Here's your area of low pressure. And watch what happens here. See, you have a 1003 millibar low that is pretty much stalled off the South Carolina coast late next weekend into the following week. And this would be either a subtropical or some sort of a tropical system. And because of that blocking high to the north of it, it really can't go anywhere. And it just sits over this area. Let's take a look at the European model and see what the European has. And taking a look at the Euro, you can see we do, again, have this stalled boundary and energy in the south. And we do have this other low that gets going into the Atlantic. Then you have another low that tries to get going over Florida. And this whole cluster of energy really doesn't do much. But as we get into the second half of next week, things try to get a little bit more organized, as you can see here, off the southeast coast. So basically what I'm trying to show you is, if you have Memorial Day weekend plans anywhere from Florida all the way up in the mid-Atlantic, we'll say as far north as Connecticut, pay close attention to the forecast for next weekend. That blocking high is going to be in place up north. All models agree that there's going to be a blocking high that sets up as early as Tuesday. And underneath that, a system could try to get going, and it could create a rather unsettled pattern in the east. Let's take a look at the precipitation amounts from days 1 through 7. Look at this. This is some serious precipitation for Florida. You could have isolated amounts up to 5 to 7 inches, maybe even localized 10 inches if this system gets going. And should that system really get going, on the second half of this bracket, we would see these high amounts start showing up over South Carolina, North Carolina, maybe even Virginia. We have to watch what happens. We're going to be taking a look at the ensembles in our next update. We'll probably do another update on this again tomorrow, and we'll see what the ensembles say. But I just wanted to show you the 3 different solutions on the models to show where we stand. The rest of the country, not terribly active. Remember, we are going to see some daily thunderstorms that sit up here in the plains. Some of it could get slight risk worthy. Hail and wind would be the biggest threat. maybe even an isolated tornado. Again, instability is going to be rather high. It's just a question of how strong of a trigger can you get. And let's move on to the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Like I said, the midsection of the country, the heartland, it's really going to feel like summer. In the southeast, it's going to be below average because of that system. They get stuck down there. It's also going to be below average in portions of California, above average temperatures in the northeast, and then 8 to 14 days. Almost everywhere is above average, with exceptions to the southeast. That system could get hung up for some time. It could even go into the following week, as you saw in the Canadian. It just stalls there. Below average temperatures in southern Texas and California. And then when we come here to the 6 to 10 day temperature or precipitation outlook, you can see above average in the northwest, below average in between, and the east coast is going to be above average all the way up to about the mid-Atlantic region, depending where that system sets up. And 8 to 14 day, it continues to be above average there, because who knows how long that system will remain stalled. Below average in the Great Lakes, below average in the Four Corners region, and just ever so slightly above average in the Northwest. Alrighty, that does it for today's weather update. We'll probably have another one again tomorrow, updating on this potential coastal system, maybe tropical system, in the east. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to my channel down below. Have a great evening, everyone.